The morning sun streamed through my kitchen window, casting a warm glow over the cluttered countertop. I stood there, coffee in hand, staring out at the quiet street that had become so familiar to me over the years. It was a typical Saturday in my suburban neighborhood, where the pace of life was slow and the days often blended into one another. I had settled into a comfortable routine: work as a freelance graphic designer, evenings spent curled up with a good book, and weekends filled with errands and solitary pursuits. Yet, beneath this calm exterior, a restlessness churned inside me. At 31, I found myself grappling with a sense of longing that I couldn't quite articulate. My friends had settled into relationships or marriages, while I remained single, navigating life on my own terms. I often felt like an outsider looking in, watching as love blossomed around me while I struggled to find my own connection. My heart ached for intimacy, someone to share laughter with, to confide in, to hold close during quiet nights. As I sipped my coffee, I caught sight of Clara across the street. She was my neighbor, a vibrant woman in her late 20s whose laughter could light up even the cloudiest of days. We had exchanged pleasantries over the garden fence and shared brief conversations at the mailbox, but we had never really connected beyond that surface level. Today, however, she seemed different. There was an energy about her that drew me in, a spark that made my heart race. Clara was struggling with her groceries as she fumbled with a bag that had clearly burst at the seams. A few apples rolled onto the sidewalk, and she bent down to retrieve them, her curls bouncing around her face as she laughed at her own clumsiness. I felt an inexplicable urge to help her. It was as if a magnetic force pulled me toward her. "Need a hand?" I called out, setting my coffee down on the porch railing and stepping into the sunlight. "Oh, yes, please," Clara replied, her green eyes lighting up with relief as she looked up at me. I thought I could carry everything in one trip. Clearly, I was wrong. I walked over to help her gather the fallen apples and noticed how her smile transformed her entire face, radiant and genuine. As we stood there together on the sidewalk, our fingers brushed against each other while picking up an apple. It sent an unexpected jolt through me, an electric connection that lingered longer than it should have. "I'm Clara," she said as we stood up straight again, brushing off our hands. "Your name?" I replied, feeling a warmth spread through me at our introduction. "I live right across from you." "I know. We've waved at each other a few times," she said with a laugh that made my heart flutter. "But it's nice to finally meet you properly." We chatted for a few moments as we walked back toward her house together, her laughter infectious as she recounted tales of her culinary experiments gone wrong and how she often ended up ordering takeout instead of cooking. There was something so refreshing about her openness. It made me feel comfortable in a way I hadn't experienced in a long time. As we reached her front porch, Clara fished out her keys from her bag and turned to face me with an expression that mixed gratitude and something else, something deeper that hung in the air between us like an unspoken promise. "Thank you for your help," she said earnestly. "I really appreciate it." "Anytime," I replied, feeling an unexpected urge to linger just a little longer. "Would you like to come in for some coffee?" "I have freshly brewed," Clara offered hesitantly, but hopefully, and my heart raced at the invitation. It felt like an opportunity too good to pass up. "Sure, that sounds great." As we stepped inside her home, a cozy space filled with eclectic decor and the scent of lavender, I felt an overwhelming sense of warmth enveloping me. The living room was adorned with colorful throw pillows and bookshelves overflowing with novels that whispered stories of adventure and romance. It felt like stepping into Clara's world, a world that intrigued me more than I could have anticipated. We settled onto her couch with steaming mugs of coffee cradled in our hands. The conversation flowed effortlessly between us, sharing stories about our lives, our dreams, and our favorite things. Every laugh drew us closer together. Every shared glance ignited something within me that I had long buried. But beneath this budding connection lay an undercurrent of conflict, a fear nagging at the back of my mind like an unwelcome guest. Was it right to feel this way about someone who lived so close? What if this attraction led to complications? My heart raced at the thought of crossing that line between friendship and something more profound, a line I had never dared to tread before. As we talked about everything from our favorite movies to childhood memories filled with laughter and tears, Clara's gaze lingered on mine longer than necessary, a silent acknowledgement of the chemistry crackling between us. In those moments of vulnerability shared over coffee cups and laughter, I couldn't help but wonder if this was what I had been searching for all along, a connection that transcended mere friendship. But just then, Clara's phone buzzed on the table between us, an interruption that shattered our moment like glass breaking against stone. She glanced down at it with a frown before looking back up at me. "Sorry. Just 1 second," she said apologetically as she reached for her phone, and I nodded but felt a pang of disappointment wash over me. It was as if reality had intruded upon our little bubble of intimacy just when things were beginning to feel right. As Clara read through her messages, I took a moment to gather my thoughts, to confront the growing feelings swirling within me like leaves caught in a whirlwind. What if pursuing this connection meant risking everything? What if it led to heartbreak? When Clara finally set her phone down again, there was an expression on her face that told me something significant had shifted between us, but neither of us knew how to address it just yet. "I'm really glad we met today," she said softly after a moment's pause. "Me too," I replied earnestly. There was no denying how much this encounter had ignited something deep within me. A flicker of hope amidst uncertainty, waiting patiently for its moment to shine through. As Clara and I settled into a comfortable rhythm, our conversations flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and shared stories. The initial spark of connection had ignited something within me, a warmth that lingered long after our encounters. Yet, beneath the surface of this budding friendship lay an undercurrent of tension, a mixture of excitement and fear that made my heart race. It was a week later when everything changed. I had just returned home from a long day of work, exhausted but eager to unwind. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood. I poured myself a glass of wine and settled onto my couch, ready to lose myself in a book. But my thoughts kept drifting back to Clara, her laughter, her captivating eyes, the way she moved with such grace and confidence. Just as I was about to immerse myself in the pages of my novel, there was a knock at my door. My heart jumped at the unexpected sound. I set my book down and opened the door to find Clara standing there, her hair slightly tousled from the breeze and a look of urgency on her face. "Hey, sorry to drop by unannounced," she said breathlessly. "Can I come in?" "Of course," I replied, stepping aside to let her enter. "Everything okay?" Clara took a deep breath as she stepped into my living room, her eyes scanning the space before settling on me. "I just needed to talk," she said, her voice laced with an intensity that made my heart race. "Sure. What's on your mind?" I asked, concern creeping into my voice as I gestured for her to sit down. She perched on the edge of the couch, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. "I had a really rough day," she admitted, looking down at her hands as if searching for answers within them. "Work has been stressful lately, and I don't know." I felt a pang of empathy for her. It was clear that something was weighing heavily on her mind. "Do you want to talk about it?" I offered gently. Clara looked up then, meeting my gaze with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. "I don't want to burden you with my problems," she said softly, but there was a vulnerability in her eyes that made it impossible for me to look away. "You're not a burden," I assured her, feeling an overwhelming urge to comfort her. "I'm here for you." She took a deep breath and nodded slowly. "Okay. It's just there's this project at work that's been really challenging. My boss is putting so much pressure on me to deliver results, and it feels like no matter how hard I try, it's never enough." As she spoke, I could see the frustration etched across her features, the way her brows furrowed slightly as she recounted the details of her day. It was clear that this wasn't just about work. It was about feeling overwhelmed and unsupported. "I get that," I said quietly, trying to relate to her experience. "Sometimes it feels like we're expected to do everything perfectly all the time." Clara nodded, her expression softening as she recognized the understanding in my words. "Exactly. And then there's this pressure to always be on, to be funny or charming or whatever." In that moment, something shifted between us, a shared understanding born from vulnerability that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. As she spoke about her struggles, I felt an overwhelming desire to reach out and pull her closer, to let her know she wasn't alone in this fight against expectations. "I think you're incredible just as you are," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes widened slightly at my words. There was a flicker of surprise mixed with something deeper, something unspoken that hung in the air between us like an electric current. "Thank you," Clara replied quietly, her voice trembling slightly as if she were grappling with emotions that threatened to spill over. The atmosphere shifted again. We were no longer just two neighbors sharing pleasantries, but two souls connecting over shared fears and unspoken desires. The air crackled with tension as we locked eyes, an unspoken acknowledgement of what lay beneath the surface. Just then, Clara's phone buzzed on the coffee table between us, an unwelcome interruption that shattered our moment like glass breaking against stone. She glanced down at it with a frown before looking back up at me. "I'm sorry." "Just 1 second," she said apologetically as she reached for her phone, and I nodded but felt a pang of disappointment wash over me. It was as if reality had intruded upon our little bubble of intimacy just when things were beginning to feel right. As Clara read through her messages, I took a moment to gather my thoughts, to confront the growing feelings swirling within me like leaves caught in a whirlwind. What if pursuing this connection meant risking everything? What if it led to heartbreak? When Clara finally set her phone down again, there was an expression on her face that told me something significant had shifted between us, but neither of us knew how to address it just yet. "Thank you for listening," she said softly after a moment's pause. "It really helps to talk about it." "Anytime," I replied earnestly. There was no denying how much this encounter had ignited something deep within me, a flicker of hope amidst uncertainty waiting patiently for its moment to shine through. But just then, a loud crash echoed from outside, followed by shouts, an unexpected commotion that pulled us both back into reality. "What was that?" Clara exclaimed as we both jumped up from the couch, instinctively moving toward the window. Peering outside revealed a chaotic scene. Two kids had collided while riding their bikes down the street. One had fallen off while the other skidded to a stop beside them, panic etched across their faces. "Let's go check on them," Clara said urgently as she grabbed my hand without thinking, her grip firm yet reassuring as we rushed out together into the cool evening air. The sight before us made my heart race faster than ever. Adrenaline surged through me as we approached the scene. Two kids sitting on the pavement looking shaken but unharmed while their parents rushed forward from nearby houses, concerned yet relieved all at once. As we reached them, Clara kneeling beside one child while I checked on the other. I felt an overwhelming sense of camaraderie building between us, a shared purpose pulling us closer together amidst chaos, reminding me once again how much this connection meant already. After ensuring everyone was okay and helping calm their nerves with gentle reassurances, the tension from earlier began creeping back into focus again, leaving lingering questions hanging heavily between us, waiting patiently for their turn once more. As we walked back toward my house afterward, our hands brushing against each other occasionally, I couldn't help but wonder what would come next for us both. Would we dare take that leap into something deeper? Or would fear hold us back forever? The days that followed our chaotic encounter with the kids on the bikes felt charged with an electric energy I couldn't quite explain. Clara and I had exchanged a flurry of texts, checking in on each other, sharing memes, and laughing about the absurdity of the situation. Each message from her sent a thrill through me, igniting a warmth that lingered long after I had set my phone down. One evening, as I prepared dinner in my small kitchen, I found myself daydreaming about Clara, her laughter, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke passionately about something she loved. The scent of sautéed garlic filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of fresh basil from my garden outside. I was lost in thought when my phone buzzed on the counter, jolting me back to reality. "Hey, want to join me for a movie night?" Clara's message read. My heart raced at the invitation. "Absolutely. What time?" I replied quickly. 7 p.m.? "I'll provide the popcorn," she texted back. As I prepared for our movie night, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. This would be our first time hanging out in a more intimate setting, a chance to explore the connection that had been simmering between us since that day we met. I dressed casually in a soft sweater and jeans, trying to calm my nerves as I glanced in the mirror one last time. When I arrived at Clara's house, the door swung open before I could knock. She stood there, framed by warm light spilling from inside, wearing a cozy, oversized sweatshirt that made her look effortlessly adorable. Her hair was pulled back into a loose bun, but a few rebellious curls had escaped and framed her face beautifully. "Hey, come in," Clara said with an inviting smile that made my heart flutter. The moment I stepped inside, I was enveloped by the comforting scent of popcorn mixed with something sweet, maybe vanilla candles flickering softly on her coffee table. The living room was warm and inviting, decorated with colorful throw pillows and art pieces that reflected Clara's vibrant personality. "I hope you like rom-coms," she said playfully as she led me to the couch. "I have a classic lined up." "Absolutely. They're one of my guilty pleasures," I admitted, settling onto the couch beside her. Our knees brushed against each other, sending a jolt of warmth through me. As we settled in and started the movie, Clara reached for the bowl of popcorn resting between us. "Here, help yourself," she said cheerfully, her eyes sparkling in the dim light. I took a handful of popcorn and savored its buttery flavor as we both laughed at the antics unfolding on screen. The sound of her laughter was like music to my ears, light and infectious, and it made me feel more at ease than I had in ages. "Okay, but can we talk about how unrealistic this is?" Clara said suddenly during a particularly cheesy scene where the lead couple had an over-the-top romantic moment. I chuckled at her commentary. "Right? Who actually does that in real life?" We fell into an easy rhythm of banter throughout the movie, sharing our opinions on characters and plot twists while teasing each other about our favorite tropes. The more we talked, the more comfortable I felt. It was as if we were peeling back layers of ourselves with every laugh shared. But amid this growing intimacy lay an undercurrent of conflict within me, a nagging fear that threatened to overshadow our connection. What if this blossoming friendship led to something deeper? What if it didn't? My heart raced at the thought of crossing that line between friendship and romance, a line that felt both thrilling and terrifying. As the movie came to an end, Clara turned to me with an expression that mirrored my own uncertainty. "So, what did you think?" she asked softly. "I loved it. It was so much fun," I replied honestly. But then hesitation crept in again. This was where things could shift dramatically between us. "You have great taste in movies." Clara smiled warmly at my compliment, but then bit her lip nervously. "I'm glad you enjoyed it," she said quietly. "I've been wanting to spend more time together." My heart raced at her words. They hung between us like an unspoken promise waiting to be fulfilled. "Me too," I admitted softly, feeling vulnerable yet hopeful all at once. Just then, a sudden noise outside broke our moment, a loud crash followed by shouting from down the street. We both jumped slightly at the interruption but quickly exchanged glances filled with concern. "What was that?" Clara asked anxiously as we moved toward the window together. Peering outside revealed another chaotic scene, this time involving two teenagers arguing loudly while their bikes lay tangled on the sidewalk nearby. It seemed like another moment of chaos had erupted right before our eyes. "Should we check on them?" I suggested hesitantly. Part of me wanted to stay cocooned in this moment with Clara, while another part felt compelled to help. "Yes. Let's go," she replied without hesitation as she grabbed her jacket from a nearby chair before heading toward the door. As we stepped outside into the cool evening air again, our hands brushing against each other occasionally, I couldn't shake off the feeling that every interaction brought us closer, while also heightening my internal conflict about what lay ahead for us both. After ensuring everyone was okay and helping calm their nerves with gentle reassurances, the tension from earlier began. Creeping back into focus again, leaving lingering questions hanging heavily between us, waiting patiently for their turn once more. Later that week, we found ourselves meeting up again, this time for coffee at a quaint little cafe tucked away on a side street. As we settled into our seats by a window overlooking bustling pedestrians outside, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over me. Every moment spent together felt like a gift wrapped in love despite lingering uncertainties still lurking beneath its surface, waiting patiently for their turn once more. "So, What's your favorite way to unwind after a long day? Clara asked suddenly as she stirred sugar into her coffee. While looking at me expectantly, I considered her question for a moment before answering honestly. Honestly? Just curling up with a good book or watching something mindless on TV. She laughed lightly at my response. There was something so genuine about her laughter. It made me feel seen in ways I hadn't anticipated before meeting her. What about you? I asked curiously, wanting to know more about this incredible woman sitting across from me who had already begun to capture my heart so effortlessly. I love cooking, Clara replied enthusiastically, her eyes lighting up as she spoke about it passionately like it was second nature to her soul. It's therapeutic for me, creating something delicious out of simple ingredients. Do you have any specialties? I asked playfully, imagining Clara whipping up culinary masterpieces in her kitchen filled with laughter and joy. Oh, definitely. My pasta dishes are legendary, she declared dramatically before bursting into laughter again. It was infectious, a sound that made my heart race even faster than before as we continued talking about everything from favorite recipes to childhood memories filled with laughter and tears. I couldn't shake off how much this connection meant already. Every shared glance ignited something deep within me waiting patiently for its moment to shine through. But just then, a flicker of doubt crossed Clara's face as if she were grappling with something profound beneath her surface, a hesitation that made my heart race again with uncertainty about what lay ahead for us both. What if this doesn't work out? She asked suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper, but heavy with unspoken fears lingering between us like shadows waiting patiently for their turn at last. I don't know, I replied honestly. Uncertainty gnawed at me too, the weight of possibility pressing down on us both as we sat there together. Beneath fading light, surrounded by beauty, yet tinged by fear, waiting patiently for its moment once more. The days turned into weeks, and with each encounter, Clara and I grew closer, our connection deepening in ways I had never anticipated. Our coffee dates became a cherished routine, filled with laughter and shared dreams. Yet, beneath the surface of our budding friendship lay an undercurrent of tension, an unspoken desire that lingered in the air between us like a charged current waiting for the right moment to spark. It was a Friday evening when everything changed. Clara had invited me over for dinner, an invitation I had eagerly accepted. I spent the afternoon preparing, choosing my outfit carefully, a soft sweater that hugged my curves just right, and jeans that made me feel confident. As I stood in front of the mirror, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety swirling inside me. This dinner felt different. It was more than just a meal between friends. When I arrived at Clara's house, the warm glow of light spilled from her windows, illuminating the porch where she stood waiting for me. She wore a fitted dress that accentuated her figure beautifully, and my heart raced at the sight of her. "Hey, you look amazing," she said, her eyes sparkling with genuine delight. "Thanks. So do you," I replied, feeling warmth spread through me as she ushered me inside. The aroma of something delicious wafted through the air as we entered her cozy kitchen. Clara had prepared a feast, pasta with homemade sauce, a fresh salad, and garlic bread that was already sizzling in the oven. The sight of her bustling around the kitchen filled me with admiration. She moved with such ease and confidence. "I hope you're hungry," Clara exclaimed as she set the table. "I could eat a horse," I joked, earning a laugh from her that sent butterflies fluttering in my stomach. As we sat down to eat, the conversation flowed effortlessly between us. Stories about our childhoods, our favorite foods, and our dreams for the future. But as we shared our laughter and meals, I felt an undeniable shift in the atmosphere, a tension building beneath our lighthearted banter. After dinner, we moved to the living room to watch a movie. Clara dimmed the lights and curled up on her couch, patting the space beside her. I joined her, feeling a thrill run through me as our bodies brushed against each other. The film started, but my focus drifted away from the screen. Instead, I found myself captivated by Clara, the way her hair framed her face in soft waves and how she bit her lip during particularly intense scenes. There was something so intimate about this moment, sitting side by side in the dim light, sharing space and energy, Halfway through the movie, Clara turned to me with an expression that made my heart skip a beat. "Can I ask you something?" she said softly. "Of course," I replied, my pulse quickening at the seriousness in her tone. "What do you think about us?" Her question hung in the air like a fragile bubble waiting to burst. I felt my breath catch in my throat as emotions swirled within me. Fear, longing, uncertainty all colliding at once. "I think there's something special here," I admitted cautiously. "But I also don't want to ruin what we have." Clara's gaze softened as she processed my words. "I feel it too," she confessed quietly. "But it scares me." "Why?" I asked gently, wanting to understand what lay beneath her vulnerability. "Because what if it doesn't work out? What if we lose this connection?" Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke. There was an intensity in her eyes that made my heart ache for her. "Clara," I said softly, reaching out to take her hand in mine. The warmth of her skin against mine sent shivers down my spine. "I don't want to lose this either." In that moment of shared vulnerability, everything shifted between us, a silent acknowledgement of what lay beneath the surface finally breaking free from its restraints. Our eyes locked as if drawn together by an invisible force. Every breath felt charged with possibility. Without thinking, I leaned closer, my heart racing as I closed the distance between us. Clara's breath hitched slightly as our lips were mere inches apart. Time seemed to stand still as we hovered on the precipice of something profound. And then it happened, a kiss that ignited every nerve ending within me. It was soft at first, tentative, as if we were both testing the waters of this new territory together. But then it deepened into something more passionate, a mingling of warmth and desire that sent fireworks exploding behind my closed eyelids. Clara's hands found their way to my waist as she pulled me closer. Every touch ignited flames within me that had long been dormant. The world around us faded away, the movie forgotten, as we lost ourselves in this moment of pure connection. But just as quickly as it began, doubt crept back into my mind like an unwelcome shadow threatening to extinguish our flame. What if this kiss changed everything? What if it led to complications neither of us were prepared for? I pulled away slightly, our foreheads resting together as we both gasped for breath. There was an intensity in Clara's gaze that mirrored my own uncertainty. "What did we just do?" I whispered breathlessly, feeling both exhilarated and terrified all at once. "I don't know," Clara admitted softly. Vulnerability washed over her features like a wave crashing against rocks, a mixture of fear and hope swirling within those captivating green eyes. "We should talk about this," I suggested hesitantly. Uncertainty gnawed at me again, the weight of possibility pressing down on us both, as we sat there together beneath dim light surrounded by beauty, yet tinged by fear waiting patiently for its moment once more. Just then, a loud crash echoed from outside, followed by shouts, an unexpected commotion that pulled us both back into reality once more. "What now?" Clara murmured curiously before getting up to answer it, while leaving me sitting there feeling both anxious yet hopeful, all at once wondering what awaited us beyond those doors. As she opened it wide, revealing none other than Jenna standing there looking determined yet uncertain, I felt my heart drop into my stomach, sensing trouble brewing on this horizon once again, threatening everything we had built together thus far. The moment Clara and I shared that kiss lingered in the air long after Jenna's unexpected arrival shattered our bubble of intimacy. My heart raced, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, excitement, fear, and confusion all colliding within me. Clara's expression mirrored my own turmoil as we stood frozen at the threshold, the warmth of our connection suddenly overshadowed by the presence of her ex-girlfriend. "Clara, there you are," Jenna exclaimed, her voice bright but with an edge that made my stomach twist. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, her confident demeanor filling the space with an energy that felt intrusive. "Jenna," Clara said, her voice faltering slightly as she glanced back at me, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. I could see the tension building between them, a history that loomed large in the room, threatening to suffocate the fragile connection Clara and I had just begun to explore. "I wasn't expecting to see you," Jenna continued, her gaze darting between us. "I thought we could talk." "Now?" Clara asked, her tone betraying a hint of annoyance. I was in the middle of something. Jenna crossed her arms, a defensive posture that sent a chill through me. I know you're busy, but it's important. I felt like an outsider in my own skin as I stood there, caught between two women whose lives had intertwined in ways I couldn't fully comprehend. The weight of the kiss still hung heavily on my lips, but now it felt tainted by the reality of Jenna's presence. "Can we talk later?" Clara asked, her voice firm but laced with uncertainty. "No," Jenna replied sharply. "We need to discuss this now." Clara sighed, running a hand through her hair in frustration.
Fine.
"Let's talk." I took a step back, feeling like an unwelcome guest as they moved to the kitchen table. My heart sank as I watched them interact, Jenna's assertiveness clashing with Clara's hesitation. It was clear that their past was still very much alive and present. I stood awkwardly by the couch, unsure of what to do or say. The warmth from earlier had dissipated, replaced by an icy tension that made me feel small and insignificant. I wanted to leave, to escape this uncomfortable situation, but something held me back. I needed to know how this would unfold. "Look, I just want to understand where we stand," Jenna said, her voice softer now but still carrying an edge of urgency. "You've been distant lately." Clara crossed her arms defensively. "Maybe because you keep showing up unannounced and demanding my attention." "I'm not trying to pressure you," Jenna replied, frustration creeping into her tone again. "But we need to figure out what this means for us." As they continued their conversation, I felt like a ghost haunting the edges of their history, an interloper in a story that didn't belong to me. My heart ached for Clara. She looked torn between two worlds, one filled with familiarity and comfort, and another bursting with potential and excitement. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, I cleared my throat softly. Maybe I should go?" Both women turned to look at me. Clara's expression softened while Jenna's hardened slightly. "No. Stay." Clara insisted quickly, stepping toward me as if trying to bridge the distance between us. "I want you here." But Jenna interjected before I could respond. "This is about us right now," she said pointedly. "You can't just bring someone else into this conversation." I felt heat rise in my cheeks at her words, an uncomfortable mix of embarrassment and anger bubbling beneath the surface. "I'm not trying to intrude," I said quietly but firmly. "But it's clear this is affecting both of us." Clara looked between us, clearly torn. "This isn't how I wanted tonight to go," she admitted softly. Jenna sighed heavily. There was a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes that made me pause. "I just want clarity," she said finally, her voice dropping to a whisper as if admitting a secret. "Clarity about what?" Clara asked gently. "About us," Jenna replied, her gaze steady as she met Clara's eyes. "About whether we're really done, or if there's still something here worth fighting for." The room fell silent as Clara processed Jenna's words. I could see the conflict playing out across her face, the struggle between loyalty to someone who had once been significant in her life and the undeniable connection she had begun to forge with me. I don't know," Clara said finally, her voice trembling slightly as she looked down at the table. My heart sank at her uncertainty. It felt like everything we had built together was hanging by a thread. One wrong move could unravel it all. "I'm sorry," I said softly, stepping back again as if creating physical distance could ease the emotional turmoil swirling around us all. "Maybe I should really go," Clara exclaimed again, reaching out for my hand and gripping it tightly as if afraid I might slip away entirely. "Please don't leave." Jenna watched us closely. There was tension crackling in the air like static electricity, a battle for Clara's attention playing out right before my eyes. "I need time to think," Clara said finally, looking between us both with uncertainty etched across her features. "Time?" Jenna echoed incredulously. "You're just going to let this new thing distract you from what we've built." "It's not just a distraction." Clara shot back defensively before turning toward me again with an apologetic expression on her face. "I care about you too." My heart swelled at her words. They were both comforting and terrifying at once, an acknowledgement of our connection amid chaos, yet tinged with uncertainty about what lay ahead. "Maybe we should take a step back from everything for now," Jenna suggested coolly. There was an edge in her voice that made my stomach twist uncomfortably again. What? You want me to choose? Clara asked incredulously. Hurt flashed across her face, as if realizing how much pressure had been placed upon her shoulders without warning. I just want clarity. Jenna insisted again. Frustration simmered beneath the surface as she crossed her arms defiantly. I can't just choose like that. Clara exclaimed. Tears glistened in her eyes as she struggled against the weight of expectations pressing down on her from both sides. The atmosphere grew thick with unresolved tension. Every breath felt heavy with unspoken words waiting patiently for their turn once more, finally, after what felt like an eternity of silence hanging between us. Jenna turned on her heel and stormed out without another word, leaving behind only echoes of unresolved feelings lingering in its wake. As soon as she left, the air shifted again, leaving behind a void filled with uncertainty hanging heavily around us like fog waiting patiently for its moment once more. I'm so sorry about that, Clara said quietly after several moments passed. Vulnerability washed over her features like waves crashing against rocks, a mixture of fear and hope swirling within those captivating green eyes. It's okay, I replied softly, though inside my heart raced faster than ever before, wondering what lay ahead for us both. I didn't expect this evening to turn into such a mess, she admitted finally, tears glistening in those beautiful eyes making my heart ache for all she was feeling right now. I didn't either, I confessed quietly, wanting nothing more than to reach out and comfort her while also grappling with my own conflicting emotions swirling within. As we stood there together beneath dim light, surrounded by beauty, yet tinged by fear waiting patiently for its moment once more, I couldn't shake off how much this connection meant already. Every shared glance ignited something deep within me waiting patiently for its moment to shine through. But just then, the doorbell rang, unexpectedly cutting through our moment like thunder rolling across an otherwise clear sky. What now? Clara murmured curiously before getting up again, leaving me sitting there feeling both anxious yet hopeful, all at once wondering what awaited us beyond those doors. As she opened it wide, revealing none other than Jenna standing there looking determined yet uncertain, I felt my heart drop into my stomach, sensing trouble brewing on this horizon once again, threatening everything we had built together thus far. The door swung open, and there stood Jenna, her expression a mix of determination and vulnerability that sent a jolt through the room. Clara's eyes widened in surprise, and my heart raced as I watched the tension in the air shift once more. Jenna, Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper. What are you doing here? I need to talk to you, Jenna replied, her tone firm yet tinged with uncertainty. I've been thinking a lot since I left, and I can't just walk away without saying what's on my mind. Clara glanced at me, her expression a mixture of concern and confusion. I felt like an intruder in this moment, caught between two women with a shared history that I could never fully understand. But I also knew that this was a pivotal moment for Clara. She needed to confront her past to embrace whatever future lay ahead. Can we talk privately? Jenna asked, her gaze shifting between Clara and me. Clara hesitated, clearly torn. I don't know if that's a good idea. Please, Jenna pleaded, her voice softening. I just want to explain myself. After a moment of silence, Clara nodded slowly. Okay, let's talk. I stepped back instinctively, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on us all. As Clara led Jenna into the kitchen, I remained in the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. The air felt thick with unresolved emotions, fear, longing, uncertainty, all swirling around me like a storm waiting to break. I could hear snippets of their conversation drifting from the kitchen, Jenna's voice rising and falling as she spoke passionately while Clara listened intently. I felt an overwhelming urge to eavesdrop but resisted. This was their moment to confront their past. Minutes passed like hours as I paced back and forth, anxiety gnawing at me. What were they discussing? Would Clara choose Jenna? The thought sent a wave of panic through me, but deep down, I knew that Clara had to make this decision for herself. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Clara emerged from the kitchen with tears glistening in her eyes. My heart sank at the sight. I rushed toward her instinctively. Are you okay? I asked softly, concern flooding my voice. She nodded slowly, but didn't meet my gaze. I I think we're done, she said quietly. Done? My heart raced at the implications of her words. With Jenna? Yes, Clara replied, finally looking up at me with determination etched across her features. I realized that holding on to our past was keeping me from exploring what's right in front of me. Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. I reached out to take her hands in mine, feeling the warmth of her skin against my own. Clara, I care about you, she said firmly, squeezing my hands as if grounding herself in this moment. I want to see where this can go. In that instant, everything shifted. The weight of uncertainty lifted as hope blossomed between us like flowers breaking through winter's frost. But even amidst this newfound clarity lay an undercurrent of vulnerability. We both knew that love required courage and honesty. What about Jenna? I asked gently, wanting to ensure she was truly ready to let go. She deserves happiness too, Clara replied thoughtfully. But I can't keep living in the shadow of our past. As we stood there together, hands intertwined, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over me for this moment of clarity shared between us. It was as if all the pieces had finally fallen into place. We were ready to embrace whatever came next together. But just then, a sudden realization hit me like a bolt of lightning. What if pursuing this connection meant risking everything? What if it led to heartbreak? Clara, I began hesitantly, uncertainty creeping back into my voice. She looked up at me with those captivating green eyes filled with understanding and warmth. I know it's scary, she said softly, but we can face it together. Her words resonated within me, a reminder that love was worth the risk despite its inherent challenges. In that moment, I realized how much I had grown through this journey, how every laugh shared and every tear shed had shaped not only our connection but also my understanding of myself. I'm ready, I said finally, feeling a sense of peace wash over me as I squeezed her hands tighter. With newfound determination, we stepped toward each other once more, this time without hesitation, as our lips met in a kiss filled with promise and hope for what lay ahead. It was tender yet passionate, a melding of souls that ignited something deep within both of us, waiting patiently for its moment to shine through. As we pulled away slightly, foreheads resting together, I felt an overwhelming sense of clarity wash over me. This was just the beginning, a chance to explore love without fear holding us back any longer. But just then, the doorbell rang again, unexpectedly cutting through our moment like thunder rolling across an otherwise clear sky. What now? Clara murmured curiously before breaking away from me reluctantly, leaving behind warmth lingering in its wake, wondering what awaited us beyond those doors. As she opened it wide, revealing none other than Jenna standing there looking determined yet uncertain, I felt my heart drop into my stomach, sensing trouble brewing on this horizon, once again threatening everything we had built together thus far. But this time, I knew we could face it together. Whatever came next would be part of our journey. A testament to our growth and resilience as individuals navigating love amidst uncertainty, waiting patiently for its moment once more.